Good.
Cool, excellent. Thanks a lot for making time to come out of your obviously a busy schedule on a Friday lunchtime, and I hope that most of you are not going back to the office after this, and you can actually take the rest of the afternoon off and have an extended, long-ish sort of weekend. But if you need a note, then let us know, and I'm sure I'll get Tracy to provide one for you. Look, today's going to be a fairly informal type of session, so throughout the presentation and the session and building an app on the fly today. If you've got questions, please shout out. I want to introduce some of the team members from Novata Solutions first of all. So we've got, at the back, we've got Tracy DePolis, my wife, and also a director of Novata Solutions. So Tracy manages all delivery of all projects. She's responsible for that. We've got Jessica Gizzarelli at the back there, newly engaged. And she manages all our digital marketing and event coordination. We've got Alex Knorr, the hipster in the ponytail. So Alex runs our design team and oversees our Office 365 practice.
And our 2IC.
And our 2IC, he sort of, when we're not there, he's in charge. Yeah. And when we are there, he's in charge as well. We've got Quasar Mawani, so one of our development team leads. Heads up oversees various technologies within Novata Solutions. And we've got Ty Peck, who is another team lead at Novata Solutions, and Ty today will actually be building an app on the fly, so let's just pray to the demo guys that everything goes well, on touch wood. So my name's Ronaldo DePolis, so I'm the MD and Principal Consultant at Novata Solutions, and I'm really, as I said, really grateful that you can make time to come out today to our 2020 OutSystems Digital Transformation Roundtable. So, as I said, it's going to be a fairly informal sort of session today, so any questions, please feel free. I want to talk a little bit about OutSystems and how it's changed the way we've seen the market, certainly change digital transformation in the market. I'm not going to try and steal too much of your thunder, Paul, because you've got at least an hour and a half of talking to do today. But the OutSystems for our business has certainly been transformational in what we've been able to deliver to clients in a very rapid fashion. So we've actually got one of our clients here today from Monadelphous that will talk about what we've been able to achieve in a very short time span that's transformed part of their business process. But at a very high level, the OutSystems platform allows us to deal with all parts of the app dev platform. You know, the IDE, or the development studio allows us to deal with the database layer, the logic layer, the integration layer, the process layer, and also the UI layer. And the nice thing about the development studio is that we're able to do both mobile, web, services development, IoT development, all that from the one platform. So we don't have to have developers switch between platforms to allow us to do that. The back-end DevOps part is all built in as well, so being able to manage the application lifecycle from dev to test to prod to integrate other third-party DevOps tools, whether it's Jenkins or Azure DevOps pipelines, is a breeze as well. And then post-deployment, we're able to do a lot of monitoring. So built into the platform is a lot of telemetry, so we're able to see things like whether the network traffic that's going through, who the carriers are. We're able to see things like any slow calls to the database, any slow UI or fast UI, so we're able to react very rapidly. So all that's built in and baked into the platform. So given that, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce Paul Arthur, who's the Regional Vice President for ANZ, and he loves the title Vice President, being as an American, love it. And we've also got Davis Tui, the West Australian Account Manager, who is actually not in Western Australia, but in Melbourne as well. So any questions, these guys will be available throughout the session to answer. But I want to hand back to Paul, and Paul's going to talk about probably what we call the 3 tiers of digital transformation that we've seen in OutSystems. And he's written an article, or been interviewed an article with it, so that's available to read as well. But I'll hand over to you, Paul, and let you go through. That'd be great. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And
I saw Alex zoom into the camera when I first dialed into to your team meeting. I thought I'd dialed into Melbourne instead of dialed into Perth when I saw that ponytail beard appearing in the screen. So I'm glad that I have got into the right room after all. And I just want to say, thank you to Novata Solutions for having us as part of your day-to-day, and for you to give all your time to us most graciously. Novata Solutions may not be the biggest OutSystems partner in the world, but they are probably one of the best OutSystems partners in the world when it comes to actually delivering value for our clients. And I'm sure that when Angus speaks, he'll also echo that. So really pleased to be here today. The whole concept of digital transformation isn't new. Probably people have been talking about this since like sort of 2008, 2010. You start to see articles where the concept of digital transformation has been talked about. But it's interesting that we're over 10 years later and people are still talking about it. People haven't got their head around and haven't gone past and achieved the transformation maybe potentially they originally looked to do. And there are several reasons for that. Probably one of those reasons was that at the time, 10, 12 years ago, if you wanted to change the world using software, you had to write software. And writing software was a bit like, the people who wrote software was a bit like cobbler's shoes. The analogy that the children of a cobbler have the worst shoes in the street because he doesn't have time to fix those shoes. He's spending too much time fixing everybody else's shoes. And it seems to be a symptom of the fact that we were trying to create software, an industry where we were trying to create software solutions to automate things and give people time, and we were doing it in a really inefficient manner. We were doing it in a highly labor-intensive manner. Imagine that using IT was actually a labor-intensive process where you needed developers, program managers, people to actually really physically sit down and bang away on keyboards, writing lines of code. That's a really inefficient way to deliver efficiencies. But back then, that was the only one. That was the way that people saw to do. So hence, there was a slow adoption of digital transformation. The ideation of digital transformation was easy, but the execution was hard. And it was where the execution was where the value was. What happened over the last few years, however, is the rise of what is sort of grouped together term of the low-code platforms. Gartner sort of coined this term a few years ago, and they have a magic quadrant where they talk about low-code application development platforms. And it really is this idea of a solution where effectively it's about automation. It's about providing automation and automating tasks that manually were having to be done by people writing effectively the opposite of low code, which is high code. So instead of writing lines and lines of code of software for repeatable tasks, you're actually being able to use point-and-click technology, drag and drop repeatable processes, and put things in the hands of people who understand the problem and not just understood how to address the problem, how to write code about the problem. So trying to democratize innovation by creating opportunities for people to use a platform for development, as opposed to putting a barrier to entry on development and innovation by saying, until you understand this programming language, you can't develop, you can't innovate. The low-code platforms were the first step, if you like, in the iteration of trying to create, to some degree, the concept of citizen developer, although that has its risks as well, and I'm sure we'll talk about that during the day today. So once that foundation has been laid, and people then have a access to these low-code platforms, where are the points of entry for digital transformation? Where's the value? Because obviously we all want to do things that add value to our businesses or our organizations. We really see there being three particular jumping points for value in digital transformation, and in no particular order. It isn't a case of you have to do one before you do the other. Probably working from the inside out, the most critical one that we see within organizations is the concept of digital core or legacy replacement. Now, many of you will have software within your environments and applications that you may have had for many years that may be embedded and be core to the fundamentals of how your organization interacts with IT and the value that your organization gets from the IT that it has. Some of those systems could be probably getting on a bit now, and may have been written at a time where there was a certain way of doing things, and that was the most efficient way, so that's the way they do them. Many organisations will be faced with ageing ERP systems, and obviously anyone who's got SAP and faced with the prospect of looking at S4HANA now will be maybe even looking at that in a little bit of horror. The concept of transforming your core is a scary one. It's something that a lot of people will look at and say, well, why would I do that? Why would I change something that's working? When I've got time to, I've only got a certain amount of time and a certain amount of money, so I need to be able to look at other things. But if the core legacy system is holding you back, if it's stopping you innovating, it's stopping you move forward, then it is something you need to look at. What we do at OutSystems is we help organizations effectively soften the blow of changing your digital core by wrapping an OutSystems layer around maybe your aging ERP system or HR system, and allowing it to interface with the modern world, allow it to integrate with cloud capabilities, more mobile capabilities, web-based app capabilities, and provide the interaction and the interface and integration back to that legacy platform, but with a modern front end in between to allow you to integrate with, again, the 21st century of technology on top of that. So digital core is something that organizations use OutSystems for, specifically around initially adopting a wrapper approach, and then once they've got that, over time, when they've given themselves enough time and enough value, then going back and actually looking to see whether it's viable to actually replace that core system that you're going to be paying quite a lot of money to maintain and keep going with an OutSystems or modern version of that. Not compulsory, but some of our customers are doing that. The other two areas around digital transformation that we see a lot of interface for is probably jumping right out to the other side is digital experience. So the whole concept of people being able to interact with your business through technology in the format that they want to interact through. I gave a speech the other day, and someone pointed out to me in that speech that millennials turn 40 this year. The first of the millennial generation, the people born in 1980, turned 40 this year. So often when we have this preconception that millennials are people who dress a bit like Alex, come out of university, sitting back and don't really want to do any work and just sit on their iPhones all day. These people aren't. Millennials are now people with mortgages, people with children at school, people with high-powered jobs. Some of the people around this table may be millennials, right? So you actually are valuable contributors to society. But the one thing that's different about millennials is you're born in the cloud, right? You're born into an era with technology. You're born into an area where the using technology is second nature to you. So you expect the level of experience in your personal life to be as good as the level of experience you may have in your business life, and vice versa. So you would then expect your business technology interfaces to be as good as your Facebook or your Amazon experiences that you have in your private life. So what we have seen is a big push towards people wanting to push those multi-channel experiences into the hands of people where they want it, when they want it, and be able to switch from mobile to web and back again as their business, as their day and their experiences change throughout the day. So allowing to do that through an operational framework like OutSystems, where we can create interfaces that are portable across web and mobile as they need to be, across tablet, and that allows you to then code once and use many times. And I think you're going to see a little bit of that in the demonstration that Ty does later on today as well. And that's probably the most visible aspect of OutSystems. If you ask a lot of people about OutSystems, they'll probably the first thing they'll say is, oh yeah, they do all those web and mobile apps. That is part of what we do, but it's probably the most visible part of what we do, and it's the area where people perceive the most value in many situations. And again, Angus will talk about what they've done there at Monadelphous as well. And probably the third area where people are getting value out of digital transformation is really when we talk about in this core layer in the middle around digital operations. Digital operations is about two things. It's about automating repeatable tasks, automating repeatable processes, and it's about integrating systems within your organization to allow them to talk to each other to get access to better data. So a lot of that tends to be more internally focused, but what it is doing is giving you the internal efficiencies to be able to deliver, then focus your resources on delivering more value to the areas that actually make sense for your business. There is no business advantage, there is no competitive advantage in some of the back office processes. The competitive advantage for your business is automating them to allow you to have more focus on the front office, which is where your customers and your competitors are focusing. So we really see people attacking digital transformation across those three areas. Digital core with legacy replacement and a wrapper sort of approach. Digital operations, which is around automation and integration around your internal processes. And then obviously digital experience, which is providing an interface for your customers and your employees to become more, obviously effectively become more efficient, but have a more enjoyable experience, to increase the level of net promoter score for your business as compared to other organizations, and allow you to focus on delivering what is the core of your business rather than thinking about what is the IT element of what you do. So I'm like happy to pause there. If anyone's got any questions, happy to take them as well, but also happy to hang around for the rest of the session and chat with people as and when things come up.
Excellent, thank you, Paul. If there's any questions, feel free. While lunch is being served, otherwise we can hold the questions till the end. But it's quite an interesting way to look at OutSystems as well, with the three tiers of digital transformation. And we certainly see a lot of our clients today talking about, but even the first one, the digital core. Like, we've got these legacy applications, and how do we migrate across with, that sort of big frightening task of moving a mission critical application that runs your organisation, and then being able to wrap or using what's called the strangler design pattern to sort of start to take some of those functionality out of your core product and make it less reliable on those sort of events before we move on. Having said that, I want to introduce you to Angus Hatton, who's the Head of Innovation and Technology, and also their Chief Remote Pilot at Monadelphous. Angus is going to talk about his experience with OutSystems, and also he's going to sort of announce an award that they've just recently won as well. So I'll hand over to you, Angus.
Thanks for that. And thanks for having me here today. It's always good to hear from somebody who's been there and travelled the hard roads. And look, I must say, I've been really impressed with OutSystems and our use of the platform over the past couple of years. We've definitely used it to its potential, and hopefully I can allude to some of that today for you. But first, to open with, we've just won a global award for our enterprise transformation using OutSystems. So we won the award a couple of weeks ago. It was announced both globally in the OutSystems Next Step conference, and also was announced here at the WA Leaders Summit. Very, very proud to win this award. We're up against some tough competition, and it really does show that we have been able to transform an enterprise at an enterprise level. And I think if you're looking at using OutSystems and you do have a problem and you are faced with some of these enterprise issues, you can use these tools with the right structure to actually create something that is truly amazing and revolutionary for your business and your essentially bottom line and your pocket as well. So for us, it's all about employees, and I'll move on to that in a second. There's a photo of us with a trophy. Now, hands up those people that have actually won a trophy for software development before. There's not many, but we did, and there's the evidence of it. So what I'm going to talk about today is model work, but before I do that, I'll come back to that. Just a little bit about myself. I've been writing software since 1980, when my dad very first bought a Sinclair Spectrum back from the UK. After that, went into building controls and ended up running my own business for 16 years, automating businesses. So I'm no stranger to this concept of evolution or digital evolution. I've been bringing these sort of solutions to companies for many, many years. I found my way to Modern Elpis, been with them for 5 years. We've implemented IFS, one of those core solutions, to try to solve a number of different business problems, and of which this app that I'm going to talk about today actually integrates to that platform. And it really is that wrapper to the core. So my job now has moved into more of a global, when I say global, a entire divisional enterprise transformation project. But I'm also the chief remote pilot for the company as well. So on the side, if you like flying little toys, come and have a chat to me. It's always good value. But that said, yeah, we do some amazing things in that space as well. So onto the apps and OutSystems. We started with OutSystems 2.5 years ago, I think it was, at least 2 years ago, and we were looking for a solution that would allow us to do a prototyping very quickly, very efficiently. We didn't have programmers as such that we wanted to use for this. We wanted to use engineers, and one of our engineers found a solution and started to develop a concept of a prototype employee application. And we then tailored that application to meet our customers' requirements, being our end users. So we did lots of surveys and all the rest to try to hone in on the real target problem and understand where the value was going to be in this transformation. Now, this project had a little bit of history, and we did know that there was a problem. So, it wasn't that we decided to go and build an app, and there never is that, right? You need to have a problem to solve in the first place. So, all your standard principles to do with software development or transformation actually exist, but then you use some tools like this, like OutSystems, to deliver that value. So we used it, and thanks Davis and the OutSystems team for showing us through. I learned how to program it myself. No point in just leaving it to all of the Indians. You need to actually do it yourself. And I found it so easy, and you obviously will too. We were developing and were able to develop systems within a matter of minutes or hours with this low-code platform, just because of its nature in being a plug-and-play, drag-and-drop solution. So we took all that and the prototyping, the lessons learned, and we actually developed this app, and we actually ran it in an Azure environment. We actually put the whole infrastructure into Azure and stood that up. And it worked quite well for us. It allowed us to work in an environment where we didn't share any data off to external clouds. Allowed us to manufacture and work with the solution and test it with what we had as a sample group of end users, and actually value the proposition that we originally started with. So we knew that it was going to deliver on what it said it was going to, and then we went out to market and we found Novata Solutions as a partner for OutSystems to develop this application all the way through to the end. We didn't have to go that way. We actually had the option of actually developing it with all the latest technologies. There were a lot of app development companies out there that were going to write a bespoke application. What really we found the benefit in is that this is a platform. It's not it's not a solution on its own. We actually were purchasing an entire low-code development platform. And that has allowed us to build 4 different major core transformational solutions in our business. One around paperless forms, another one around RFID and actually knowing where people, basically proof of presence. And we actually, during COVID, built a close contact application in a matter of, how many hours was it? 60 hours. 60 hours. So we had a requirement to know basically to supply to one of our customers that we knew exactly who had been in contact with who at any point in time. So we built that literally to rush it into the workforce. So that's what a low-code platform can do. It can give you speed to market for a solution. So I'll just quickly talk about MonoWork. I've got some very generic vanilla screens that you can find on the App Store. MonoWork itself is a public-facing application as well as an internal-facing application. It has quite a lot of layers to it as far as its architecture. It actually does back-end into our IFS system at the moment, which it delivers all of our workforce management, and Elijah's here today. Essentially that team uses IFS to mobilise our workers to their work fronts. So that's managing their flights, accommodation, bus transfers, and the actual swing that we've actually asked them, would you like to go on this? And then making sure all their training, qualifications, competencies, drug and alcohol tests, and appointments have all been ticked off. So from a compliance perspective, they're ready to go to site, and we know that they'll meet the standard and also meet compliance regulations of our clients. So the app goes through what we designed as a middleware, which we built in Azure, and then we connected that Azure-based middleware to OutSystems in AWS, where we've got the full lifecycle stack, which essentially, if you don't know what that is in OutSystems, you have a dev, test, and a production environment, but it's also managed with this lifecycle server. So, like I said, you've got all that telemetry, you've got all that knowledge about exactly how the system's operating, and essentially you can configure and set up different users and manage different releases and run a full DevOps based deployments of your solutions. I must say that the middleware and decoupling it to essentially mean that we don't always have to take this information from the app and push it back into IFS. We can push it and pull data from all different places. We have many repositories of information, as everybody does in their company, and we've tailored this to then build on that to manage other applications such as paperless forms and other ones to do with proof of presence. So the whole thing sort of stacks up as an enterprise transformation from the ground up, and at the top of it we have edge mobility and web-based application to manage our employees. So for them it's transformational because in the past they'd get lots of phone calls, lots of SMS, they'd get a notification via email. For us now, the system that we use to drive all this data being IFS at the moment, it contains a lot of the core data to drive that, and really a transformation isn't about it's about what you're doing well and better, but it's also about looking that 5 years ahead about where you want to be and what you want to do with it. And this gives us a base to drive a better relationship with our end users, our employees in this case, and also our communities through the public-facing side of the application. And it allows us to spend more time managing these people to improve their skills, to give them better jobs and satisfaction and reward. It allows us to give them the data that they need in their hands in real time and at the time that they need it. So if you need to understand where you're going for your drug and alcohol test, you can pull out your app, fire up MonoWork, and you can see an itinerary of all the things you need to get done. If you're going to site, it'll show you exactly what time you need to be on the flight. It'll show you your bus transfer, where you're going to, where you're staying, and it'll show you all your swing times. If I want to book my time off, I can go in there and I can book my leave, so I can't then be scheduled for work. There's lots of different functionality that we use the application for, and it was all built in OutSystems. So some of these screens here, we've actually got an employee login screen, which is only for our internal users, but if you can go onto the App Store right now and go download a copy of MonoWork, and you'll see things like our current vacancies, how to contact us from a recruitment perspective. You see some of our latest news. You get an understanding about some of our terms and conditions and frequently asked questions about the business and things like that, and contact information. Once you're in, this was a generic sort of, hey, you're confirmed to go to this site on this date and that site on that day, and then you'd be given a list of things to action. So if you've been offered a job, you can actually say, yeah, I'll take that job, because that allows us to efficiently offer it to somebody else if that person doesn't want to go on that swing. And ultimately, that list is that one that will show you, all right, you're due to fly out on the 5th, you've got a drug and alcohol test to do 3 days before that, and then once we've actually got all that confirmed, you'll be getting a bus transfer on this date, and you'll be doing a swing for 2 weeks on this site, staying in this accommodation. The notifications are all about not having to make that phone call, so it's about kind of events essentially at the end of the day. So look, you've got a new job allocation, you've got a new qualification that you need to submit to us, although once they've got that call, they can actually submit it through the application as well to us. And you've got a drug and alcohol medical test that you need to go into. Sure, let's go there. There's nothing to do well. Yeah, that's right. Technology world. That's fine. So these are just some other sample screens. For example, this is the one that you'd see if you go in. We do have an employee assistance program. We do have a training centre. It's about actually trying to, in the future as well, communicate to the employees about when you're back on your spin off, you know, try and upskill. Well, these are the things that might get you considered for more work during the rest of the year if you're going to be on and then off for another 2 months or 3 months. And it's about us trying to create a relationship with these employees so that they stay with us and they go elsewhere, because we need them. We need them to fill our jobs. Qualifications and licenses, and this was that list of the jobs and accommodations, etc., that come through it. So we released the app about a year ago. We've been slowly rolling it out to different teams. Elijah, how many people have we got in the solution now?
2,500.
2,500, yeah. And we're probably looking to kick that up to the 4,000 over the coming year. And it manages some of our major mobilisations. And when I say major mobilisations, we can do a mobilisation of up to 1,000 people in 1 week. So if you consider the amount of effort required to manage that many people, that many qualifications in a very short period of time, you get some idea as to why we need this. So it is transformational. It does extend our core, and it has delivered us the value that we originally seeked. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Angus. So I just want to add a bit more for those who are technically minded or have some technology sort of announced. OutSystems, we talk about enterprise applications. You know, we have 2 different authentication providers built into this platform. We have Azure Active Directory, and then we've got a separate Active Directory for what's considered the blue-collar workers. So we can very easily differentiate between those. Now, as you know, when you move to cloud-based technologies, there's 2 different things that you really need to consider. One being identity and security, so we're able to cover that very well and hook in multiple identity providers, so whether it's Okta, whether it's AAD, whether it's OAuth, we have a built-in Forms identity provider as well. The other one is connectivity, right? So it's all good and well to talk about this when we're in Perth and we've got high-speed networks and fibre to the premises. But what happens when we are in the remote sites, when we don't always have connectivity? You know, the ability to store, to have offline mode in the apps as well is really important. And again, that's whether it's web and or mobile. So that's important. But the other thing that's important is when you do have connectivity, how do we get it back up there? So I just want to do a quick introduction to Ed. I can't say there he is. So Ed is one of our partners, telcos from Vocus, that help us when we're talking about the whole solution about how do we mobilise out to any of the remote sites around Western Australia. And it doesn't necessarily have to be to talking about the mining and resource sector, when we work with aged care providers, health providers that have remote sites as well, even up in the Northern Territory, we work with construction companies, we work with automotive and warehousing as well. So, it's really important that you can connect to that. So I'm going to stop waffling on, and I want to introduce you to, that's right, this doesn't work, to Ty. So Ty's going to test the demo guides today by building an application from the start. So this application essentially is a quasi CRM and appointment booking app. Part of this, what we're hoping to do, I hope you've all got your mobile phones here, is we want you guys to actually log in, remote, set an appointment, and hopefully you should get a response, and we should be able to do that within 30 minutes.
Yeah, we'll see how we go now.
Okay, so I'll hand you over to Ty, and Ty will switch screens and start.